Of course, the Mary Sue is going to have a bad take about WandaVision. Hello everyone, I am Mecha Random 42, the one, the only, the original, your favorite YouTube consumer advocate, Harvey, huge connoisseur and fan of 1960s sitcoms. And I think I know what I'm talking about on this one, for sure. How sure am I? I am so sure that I even brought my obligatory theme music. Oh yes, and the writing crop. Haven't seen the article yet, have you? I talked about this in my review that I have yet to edit. I have a spoiler-free and a full spoiler discussion review for WandaVision that actually talked a little bit about this. And this, of course, will spoil some aspects of WandaVision for you. So if you don't want the spoilers, watch the episode and then hear what I have to say, because I already know what they're going to say based on this. And they're actually kind of wrong about that. Oh, we'll get into this. Marvel's WandaVision tackles time period sexism in a fun way. All right. First off, I watched these shows in the 1960s. I grew up watching these shows. I grew up watching especially Dick Van Dyke, especially Bewitched, especially all of these shows, especially like Bewitched, which the second episode was inspired by. Do you know that people like Elizabeth Montgomery, who behind the scenes was a producer and in charge of a lot of that show? People like Lucille Ball had a lot to do with the production of their show. So when I saw some of their little elements of, you know, digs at and nods to, and like the toaster commercial. Hey, ladies, don't burn your husband's toast because he's gonna get me mad at you if you do.
Wank.
They weren't quite treated as badly as I think people have decided that they were back then. The housewives, the women were just as savvy, just as smart, just as manipulative, just as equal to their husbands in their own way, just in a little different way. They might not have been earning the income in a lot of these shows in their portrayal, you know, on camera. But a lot of the times, like I said, a lot of the women who were in front of the camera were also behind the scenes doing a lot of the work. So when you see this misinterpretation based on a bunch of young people who were not there, take it from me, take it from a much older person who might have actually been there for all we know. I mean, you can't prove I wasn't. That it was not nearly as bad as they like to say it was. That it was not nearly as Istonphobic as they like to say it was. Because the women had their own strengths, and they were playing up their strengths. And I think a lot of this modern day feminism came from women who were not skilled in the ways of seduction, skilled in the ways of manipulation, skilled in the ways of getting what they wanted, and being confident enough to use that to their advantage. And they were just jealous. And then they went on and grew up to write for the Mary freaking Sue! So 10 comments that they've allowed on this article. Don't bother them. Don't harass them, obviously. We're just responding to their article. The 1960s was not exactly fun for women, even in sitcom realm. Wives were at home, even when they were genies and witches. They were resigned to whatever their husbands wanted to do. Oh, that's because Samantha, first off, Samantha, who was a witch, could have anything she wanted and preferred to do it the hard way, the human way. To try and incorporate her life into her husband's, because she well, for one, knew that he wouldn't really be able to handle it, and two, she was learning about the value and the reward of earning your accomplishments and doing them yourself. So, like I said, a bit of an expert on this one. Jeannie, on the other hand, now Jeannie was a genie. She was a genie. That was her purpose as a genie, was to please her master. Can I say master? Well, you know, fuck it. That's what he's called. She was there to please her master. And she was in charge. She wasn't just reduced to. These women could have anything that they wanted, and they wanted this. They wanted this because that was the fantasy. The fantasy was for the man or even the woman, right? The woman wanted to be that. The woman wanted to have the omnipotence. She wanted to have the everything that she wanted, and she was looking up to a lot of these women. I know I certainly was, and I was not seeing them as less than. I was seeing them as choosing to earn their accomplishments in a lot of ways, especially Samantha. I was a much bigger fan of Bewitched than Jeannie, to be perfectly honest, but I did see all of the I Dream of Jeannie. I have seen them all. And the thing about Jeannie that made her strong and amazing was that towards the end, Major Nelson actually began to realize and appreciate how amazing and wonderful this woman he had was. And he did marry her, and he did treat her instead of as a possession, as she wished for that. That was her purpose. That was her desire. Because she's not a human. You can't really force her into this human ideal. You kind of have to treat her like an alien. To be perfectly honest, you have to kind of treat these other cultures that they showcased on these sitcoms in a very empowering way for women, mind you. You have to kind of treat them as a cultural difference. So you cannot apply your human ideals to these at all, because who are you to say what she did and didn't want as far as Jeannie's concerned? And the fact that she did convince Major Nelson to really appreciate what he had, to where he actually did marry her. Did you even watch it? I don't think she even watched it. Sure, there were some breaks in the mold, but for the most part, women were in the kitchen and the men brought home the bacon. And don't you think some women might actually find that to be a bit of a fantasy where you could be secure in your livelihood? To know that your worries as far as having a roof over your head are the least of, like, how much of a privilege is that to have the privilege of being a housewife, for that matter? This just seems like a bunch of jealousy from a bunch of bitter little women who have to work for a living because daddy told them that they're all princesses. Oh, he told them you're a princess and you're going to have a prince come and scoop you up and take care of you. And that doesn't happen, by the way. That actually doesn't happen. You know, that's a fantasy. And once these girls go out into college, especially the college-educated ones, you know, the ones who need it because they can't possibly even stay employed as a fast food employee, so they have to have college in order to even have some way of almost convincing some gullible employer that they're employable. So they have to assign all of these diversity labels to themselves, also just to make sure they get in, because they really have no qualifications for anything, even for college. But they learn a bunch of mumbo jumbo and bullshit, and they learn white man bad while they're tapping away at their cell phones, LOLing about Raylo, fantasizing about Robin Hood, you know, the Fox version, and trying to hump Bowser. That's what they're trying to do. Meanwhile, oh yeah, some white men said some bad things a long time ago. Oh yeah, white man bad, tap, tap, tap. And that's their whole existence. And they get into the real world and they realize that they have to earn everything, and they're bitter because of it. And then they have this application of, oh, well, women were so suppressed because men mad, men. Because they have to project onto others. Here I am, psychoanalysis Mecha, right? Mecha Freud. In Marvel and Disney Plus's WandaVision, we see Wanda Maximoff fitting into the sitcom world almost too perfectly. But the show doesn't completely erase the fact that the sexism that existed. Erase the fact that the sexism... Okay, did you not even proofread your thing? Like, do I seriously have to bring up my Rob soundboard? People don't want to see him all the time, but...
Proofread your shit!
The show doesn't completely erase the fact that the sexism that existed. And this is actually how it's on screen on the article. So yeah, proofread it. Please. I'm sure when you're typing out on your cell phone, it'll autocorrect, right? That's probably what happened. Instead, they have a fun commentary on it through the first 2 episodes. Let's explore that. Spoilers for the first 2. I already gave the spoiler warning, darling. I don't need your help on this one. Most of the 1960s were filled with the strange seduction techniques, even though couples didn't sleep in the same beds on television. I do know how real life situation worked. I was not alive. My idea of this era, like many others, is completely reliant on shows like I Love Lucy, The Dick Van Dyke Show, and trust me, childhood me was very confused by the two-bed situation. Well, that's when you actually ask an adult or you look it up on the internet. Why do they have two beds? And I can answer that. Censors, just censors. They don't want to imply any giggity on screen. They just wanted to. It's like one of those unspoken things. It's like going to the bathroom. You know, people do it without having to see or hear them excuse themselves to do so. You know, there's a lot of shows where you're not aware that they use one. And just think back. When's the last time you saw somebody get up and go to the bathroom on, you know, every single TV show that you watch, right? A lot of them don't even mention that or go and eat for that matter, depending on what show it is. There's stuff like that, or sleep, you know, you don't even see that. So you didn't want to show and imply dirty things back then. You couldn't even say the word pregnant back then. You had to say expecting, because they wanted to keep it of all ages enough. They wanted to keep it family friendly enough so that in case your child was young and was watching, you knew that you didn't have to, you know, shelter them away from something like a modern day rap song or something, because they trusted that people kind of were doing the right thing, doing the decent thing. And sorry, that's why they trusted that they were not going to be shocked and horrified and see something that they might not want. And it all came down to religion. And you're the same way, Mary Sue. You guys are the same way with your religious zealotry of, oh, we have to censor and put warning labels on old movies like Blazing Saddles and Gone with the Wind in case we offend some of our little woke religion people. It's the exact same double standard. And by the time they understand and admit to that they are a religious faction, that they are going at this with this moral purity and moral superiority like a zealot would, then I think they would understand a little bit more of why we have a problem with it, and why I'm on the same side I've always been for the last 40 some odd years of my life, where I stand against censorship and against the zealotry that tries to tell me what I can and can't do and can and can't see, based on what they might be offended by or somebody else might be offended by. I'm an adult. I can make up my own mind about what I'm offended by. Thank you very much. And I'm going on pretty long and I'm not very far into this. WandaVision has somehow mastered the art of playing in the sitcom space while still calling out the sexism that very much existed at the time of these shows we hold so dear, under the guise of WandaVision being an unusual couple. The show lets their dynamic thrive by placing those sexist aspects on the other couples or in the commercials, in the litter that litter the episode. Oh, like kitty litter, like duty scoops.
For the best cat litter when kitty poops, go out and get duty scoops.
Agnes, a character that recalls I Love Lucy's Ethel, still falls victim to the sexist ideas of the time period. Well, that's because she's supposed to be of the time period. Making jokes about how she's a housewife, having a gourmet meal at the ready, and bringing the husband issue of a magazine to help Wanda prepare for an anniversary that neither Wanda nor Vision can remember. She's an interesting look at tackling those archetypes in the show. I think she was. That's one of the problems, though, is it's sort of an exaggeration of it. It's really not something that they really discussed back then. It's not something that was ever an issue. It was never one of those issues until, you know, the sort of radical ecology, the later 60s, you know, when the bras would start coming off and they'd start burning them and they'd start wandering around, roaming the streets for free. It was around the time that the pill came into play, where women were having the choice to be a lot more loose with their bodies to go against their more conservative parents. And that was one of the issues that we had, because they would not make a point to showcase any of this. They would showcase it as normal, and any of these issues, like they're implying here of, you know, sexism, were only later attributed to it after the fact, much like how Captain Kirk is rumored to be this great ladies' man when I think he only bedded maybe 2 women on screen as far as the original, 2 or 3. I think Riker certainly bedded more on TNG, but... And that's one of those things. It's like the myth of the Luke, I am your father from Star Wars, where it just kind of spirals out of control into this wrong line read And I'm going off on tangents. I apologize. Yeah, and here's the actress. We could have sworn this was Anna Gasteyer, but it's not. What about seduction techniques? But even when WandaVision plays into it, they still have subtle jabs at the ideas that filled the show of the 60s and beyond. Women were taught to do things to get the attention of men. It was always about how you could change yourself for a man in your life and not the other way around. Yeah, but that's kind of the fun part, though. Women still to this day will play dress up. They will try on different personas. They still will insert themselves into different fit, like the D&D sort of girls who just want to complain about how it's racist. You know, those girls who I swear they don't like it. They just want to pretend to like it just to try and fit in with some guy that they're trying to, that I guess that they think that they can get pretty easily. Because let's face it, that's what they do. They're not aware that they're doing that, but that's what they're doing. In the first episode, Wanda and Agnes discuss a seduction technique for Vision, who's already Wanda's husband, and read that one such technique is to literally fall so a man can pick you up. It's actually not, and you're correcting yourself in your own article that you should stumble when you walk into a room so he can catch you. That's just so you can stumble a little bit, not so you fall, just so you kind of fake trip. And yeah, so you can have some body contact. And that's how you would indicate, because let's face it, guys can kind of be a little dense when a girl likes him. A guy might not necessarily notice. You might have to just spell it out for him and say, hey, that dude in the freaking whatever over there is hot and he should know it. And I'm sure he's just drowning in, vajayjay juice all over the place because of it. Now, sometimes they don't notice that. Sometimes they don't realize that. And sometimes they're too afraid, especially in this day and age. They're afraid that they're going to get #MeToo'd if they do try and even help a girl. So you could see why they would have a problem with this. But no, it was a way for a girl to get flirty without appearing slutty. That's really all it was. So you could basically rub up against him and you're presenting. It's like when the mandrills show their backsides. They present their backsides to a guy to say, hey, I'm interested. And that's pretty much the same thing when women lean in or get a little smiley or get a little flirty or ask about, a guy like, oh, is he single? Is he not single? That sort of stuff. But if you weren't such a miserable person, you'd probably not. That's what it feels like. These women who write for this article, write for this site, are just so miserable when it comes to anything. Sure, it's a laugh now because none of us would fall into the arms of a man. Well, not on purpose. I'm a klutz, so it could still happen. The commercials, though, selling products to women to benefit their husbands, that's where the show really drives home the time period of the sexism that very much existed. This is where you're just applying today's standards on then, because I guarantee you there's some women who are right now afraid of burning their husband's toast, but for completely different reasons than, isms. So maybe you're just being told that it is because of the woman's gender, because she's a woman, because she's a wife. And in reality, you're really, really applying a few bad people from today to just stereotype them in general there. It is very much like the idea that, if a Star Wars fan says they don't like The Last Jedi, they're labeled as sexist by a lot of these articles. I think that's really what a lot of this boils down to. Because they forget that a lot of women choose it. Like, a lot of women would really, really love the sort of lifestyle where they could be a housewife and could be attentive because you feel appreciated. You feel like you have a purpose. What purpose do you have, Mary Sue, of writing articles that just bash men constantly? No, really. Like, is that a purpose? Does that make you feel fulfilled? Does that make you feel like you helped anybody? Does that make you feel like, you brought your husband soup when he had a cold? Does that make you feel appreciated? Does that make you feel human to just tear down other people constantly? That's what it really boils down to, because I don't think this is healthy as a species. It wasn't really about what made a woman's life easier. It was about her husband being happy with her work. Except that's not how the commercials actually were. I've seen many, many of them.
No need for the bride to feel tragic. The rest is push-button magic.
Many of them. And a lot of them are, hey, do you want your day to be easier? Get this appliance.
Frigidaire Kitchen does it all for you.
So you can Have some time to yourself to sit there and watch your soap operas and have some coffee and chat with your neighbor and gossip and go do a community event. So you're not there doing housework all goddamn day.
You don't have to be chained to the stove all day.
That's what it was. It was not about pleasing your man. It was about making your life easier as a woman. Believe me, I've seen the commercials. I've watched. They've done them on Riff Tracks. It's about getting your dream kitchen so you can be at ease with your day and you're not there scrubbing pots and pans and preparing meals all day. You can do stuff automatically. Oh yeah, automatically set a timer so it'll start the dishwasher cycle for you later. So you don't have to be home so you can go off and play tennis. You know? You really need to actually watch some of this crap, Mary Sue. For crying out loud, for fuck's sake, lady. I will say what is beautiful is that it's WandaVision who is used to show this sexism. His relationship with Wanda is balanced and nuanced, and it's a pretty even play. I did like that. They were equals. I did notice that myself. When Wanda is cooking and can't figure out dinner, she and Vision switch places, and it reminds us of the fact that that's how Wanda and Vision bonded in the first place. In Captain America Civil War, Vision is watching over Wanda for Tony, and he cooks for her despite not eating for himself, which is sort of the same problem they have in the first episode. That's cute. You know, that was cute. I liked that, and that is so the Van Dyke Kitchen. But the show doesn't lean too much into that sexism itself. They're just little jabs at it, pointing out that it is absurd and carrying on, especially since Wanda is in charge for the most part, even telling Vision what to do when his boss, Mr. Hart, is choking and on the verge of dying. I didn't like that part because it just slowed the thing down. It was too creepy. I would have liked it more, like I said in my review. Well, watch my review. Yeah, this was one of the other commercials. Strucker, he'll make time for you. Really? All right, there's a certain male type that this would apply to more than, but that's usually the bachelor type that's not going to be getting married anyway. That's the one that you're just going to hook up with on the side and then pretend that oh no, I've never been with anyone. That's, for the madman sort of. That's the Don Drapers out there. That's the James Bonds. That's the secret agents who are not going to be getting married anytime soon because they're professional bachelors. Right? And there is that type. That type definitely exists even now. I'm friends with some of them. And, this is the part of the 60s that they don't like to admit exists. You had some of these secretaries who are perfectly happy sneaking around with, I'm going to be with this guy over here and flirt with him. And I'm going to be over here and try out this guy. You had a lot of these women who were perfectly happy and empowered and out there basically being and they showcased a lot of this on Mad Men too. But there were women like that. And then you had the types that wanted to be housewives and wanted to be married. And then you had the types who wanted to do anything but be married. So, yes, I think she just needs to go back and watch a few more 60s sitcoms. She needs to take a look more at the Haight-Ashbury era of the 60s as well. She needs to take a little bit closer look at some of the things that were going on around the 1960s. And I think she needs to stop applying modern day times. And I'm not saying that sexism did not exist in the 1960s, because there was definitely, and there still are, people who don't take women seriously for things, people who would prefer male points of view. I don't even know if that's necessarily sexism. That might be preferences. But there's definitely the boss types who would pat their secretary on the butt as she walks by. And yeah, there's definitely that type. There's still that type out there now, to be honest. And I don't really think it was nearly as commonplace or as condoned as I think that they're implying, I think. Because if you look at something like Bewitched, for example, Darren would never have cheated on Samantha, no matter what. It was never implied that he would think about it. It was always implied that he wouldn't. He's like, well, I'm a married man. So you have representation of the sort of good guy types even back then. And if they really, really watched the stuff that they think they have, then, I don't know. Maybe they were just texting while they were watching it. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Sorry for a bit of a longer video, but I am Mecha Random 42. This is my wheelhouse. I will see you guys on the next video, live stream, or wherever. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!
Don't have to be chained to the stove all day.
Buddy.